Today's project is the Hudson Scarf. To start, we need to make a slip knot. To make a slip knot, make a circle with the yarn by putting the cut end of the yarn on top of the end that's still attached to the ball. Put your hand underneath and through the loop, grab the yarn that's still attached to the ball, and pull through the loop. Place the slip knot on your needle. Pull the end to make the knot a little tighter, but don't make the knot too tight, keep it a little loose. Now, holding the needle with the knot in your left hand, we need to make more loops on our needle. We're going to make each new loop in 4 steps. Step 1, with your right needle, put the needle up through the loop on your left. Step 2, wrap the yarn behind and around your right needle. Step 3, pull your right needle through to the front, catching the new loop. Step 4, put the new loop back on your left needle. Now we have 2 loops or stitches on our needle. Now we're going to do it again. Step 1, put your right needle up through the loop. Step 2, wrap the yarn around the right needle. Step 3, pull the right needle through to the front. Step 4, put the new loop back on the left needle. Do it again. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Step 4. Again, Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Step 4. This is called casting on, and you're going to keep doing this until you have 14 loops or stitches on your needle. Now we are going to knit each stitch. The knit stitch is also done in 4 steps. Step 1, put your right needle up through the first loop. Step 2, wrap the yarn around the right needle. Step 3, pull your right needle through the front. Step 4 is now different. Slide the loop off of the left needle. Now we're going to knit the next stitch. Step 1, put the needle in the loop. Step 2, wrap the yarn around the needle. Step 3, pull the right needle forward. Step 4, slide the loop off. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3, Step 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finish knitting all of the stitches. You have just finished knitting 1 row of stitches. Now put the needle with the stitches back in your left hand. Pick the empty needle with your right hand. Now you're going to knit another row. Make sure you don't pick up the end or tail of the yarn. Use the yarn that's still attached to the ball. Slide the stitches from the cable up to the needle as needed to knit to the end of the row. When you start a new row, you want to make sure the yarn is pulled under into the back of your left needle so that you can knit in your first stitch. If you accidentally hold the yarn in the front and wrap it around, it looks like there are 2 loops in it. That's not right. Pull the yarn down and back so that you can knit in your first stitch. Stop knitting when your scarf is about 48 inches long, or you will only have about a yard of yarn left. Now you need to get your stitches off of the needles. This is called binding off. First, you're going to knit the first 2 stitches, just like before. Now, take the left needle tip and put it into the first stitch on your right needle. Now pull the right needle through to the front as if you're doing step 3 of the knit stitch. Slide the stitch off of the needle like step 4. Now knit the next stitch. Again, put your left needle tip into the first stitch and pull the right needle through to the front. Slide the stitch off. Knit another stitch. Bind off again. Keep binding off 1 stitch at a time. You'll start to see that the bind off stitches are connected across the top and look like little V's. Continue to bind off until you only have 1 stitch remaining on your needle. Now remove your needle from the last stitch and pull the remaining yarn through the loop to make a knot. Fold the end of the scarf over to line up with the other end. Pull yarn out from the ball and leave about 3 times the width of the end of the scarf. Cut the yarn. You are going to use the yarn to sew the ends of the scarf together. Put the yarn through a stitch on the opposite end of the scarf. Pull the yarn through. Go back to the first end and find the next stitch up from the first. Put the yarn up through the next stitch. Go back to the opposite side and find the next stitch up. Pull the yarn through the stitch. Continue to sew the ends of the scarf with the yarn, going back and forth from one side to the next, working your way up to the top. When you get to this top, stretch out the ends to make sure you haven't pulled the sewing yarn too tight. Bring the end of the yarn back through the last stitch. Then poke the yarn through an edge stitch. Turn the whole scarf inside out. Now we need to weave in the ends of the yarn tails. Push the yarn end through one of the stitches. Then come back in the other direction. You're going to weave the end back and forth a few times. Come back back in the other direction. Repeat going back in the other direction, down into the center of the scarf. Cut off any remaining yarn. Repeat with the other tail, going back and forth a few times. Cut off the remaining yarn. Turn scarf right side out. Congratulations, your Hudson scarf is finished!